And today we are embarking on, I think, one of the most singular deep dives we've ever undertaken.
It's really something else. Our sources aren't historical texts or, white papers. They are the intensely personal chronological notes of an individual named Ram in Bihar.
And he details this profound, months-long mental and physical ordeal. It's an incredible document.
It really is. This is a journey that moves from deep philosophy to physical collapse, and then ultimately into what Ram experienced as, well, cosmic consciousness, revelation.
It's an attempt to decode order in a reality that has just suddenly become profoundly chaotic for him.
So our task here is, well, it's pretty immense. We're navigating an internal map of reality, where the individual's physical structure, marked by intense insomnia and self-imposed fasting, it just begins to fail.
And that failure seems to open the door to these massive perceptual shifts. We really have to weave Ram's abstract philosophical pursuit of order together with the very specific, often bizarre, physical details of his breakdown.
It's a synthesis of mind, body, and universe.
Exactly.
And we can anchor this entire experience to a very specific point in time and space. The crisis point, the culmination of everything. It all happened past midnight on April 8th, 2023.
And where was he?
Ram was on his family's old terrace in a remote village in Bihar. That quiet isolation, that separation from all the urban noise, it became the stage for what he describes as a universe-shattering event.
So let's start with the thinking that got him there.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Ram's ordeal, it really began with an abstract, almost poetic goal.
Chasing an elusive shadow on the horizon. That's how he puts it. He was looking for certainty, a permanent truth, order in a messy existence.
And he describes this chase as a constant, really intense duality. You have these moments of soaring happiness when he felt close to catching this shadow.
And then, bam, immediately contrasted by this drowning despair when it felt farther away than ever.
What's crucial here is that Ram starts to suspect the very nature of the order he seeks. He wonders if it's all just an illusion.
A cosmic magic show.
Right, or maybe even a carefully constructed trick that existence itself, designed simply to hide the terrifying reality of chaos underneath it all. He's challenging the fundamental reliability of his own perception.
And he backs this suspicion up with a really baffling, tangible detail from his notes. He recalls seeing this shadow from a seashore, and he notes there was no light source.
No light source at all.
None. Nothing that could logically project it.
Which is impossible. I mean, a shadow requires a light source to cast it. If the shadow exists without the light, the fundamental physics of reality are broken.
It suggests the illusion runs deeper than just sight.
It's like an error programmed into the matrix itself. And once that external sense of order is questioned, well, Ram's internal order just completely collapses.
And that brings us right to the crisis of self. Without a reliable external anchor, he feels like a complete blank slate. He's totally unable to confidently define the simplest word, me.
This is more than just an identity crisis. It's an epistemological one. Ram observes that everything he thinks he knows about himself, his name, his life story, his personality, it's all traceable to outside sources.
Things he's been told.
Exactly. Either it's the persistent thoughts in his own head, which he starts to see as external conditioning, or it's the labels given to him by other people. The core I is undefinable, and therefore, he thinks, maybe non-existent.
So he starts posing these huge existential inquiries that just sort of hang in the void. I am? Is that a question? Is it an answer? Is it nothingness, or is it everything?
He describes himself as dissolved, just hanging precariously between defined existence and total non-existence.
In a lot of traditions that explore these kinds of states, this radical dissolution is necessary, right?
Yeah.
It's the point where the mind, exhausted by its own definitions, it finally just yields. And Ram's clarity arrives not in finding a new definition for himself, but in embracing the fluidity of existence.
He realizes the answers aren't at the end of the chase, not in the shadow.
No. They're in surrendering to the ebb and flow of life. The journey itself becomes the truth.
This philosophical surrender is immediately followed by a really radical physical shift. We have to rewind about 3 weeks before that night on the terrace to see the engine of this experience just, well, start to sputter.
Right.
Ram became severely unable to, we're talking only 2 or 3 hours a night.
For weeks.
For weeks on end, yeah. And on top of that,
The appetite goes. Critically, he reached a point where he was consuming only water, convinced that food was, completely unnecessary.
now physiologically, we know that extreme fasting and chronic sleep deprivation, They're classic ways to induce altered states.
So was this intentional asceticism, do you think, or was it a symptom of a deepened crisis?
His notes suggest he genuinely believed he was transcending physical needs. But his body, well, his body tells a different story.
The heart rate, it became abnormally fast, just running constantly for no apparent reason.
And emotionally, the world was just raw. Love, sympathy, anger, everything felt too deep and heavy.
Yeah.
His emotional volume was cranked way up.
And that physical distress amplifies the sensory input, which leads directly to these profound perceptual changes. We see the start of auditory changes.
The whispers. He starts perceiving peculiar noises and whispers, almost like the space around him was trying to make contact.
And that's followed by a moment of complete, deafening, oppressive silence.
Then came the visuals. With his eyes closed, he sees abstract symbols and highly chaotic, random visuals just dancing relentlessly.
But the most unsettling shift, I think, was his inner voice. The typical monologue just broke down. It turned into a clear dialogue with an unknown source.
He said it felt less like his own thoughts and more like a radio receiver, a sound system tuning into something else.
And the body perception followed suit. This is where it gets highly disorienting. His breathing felt inverted, breathing out when he should be breathing in.
His sight turned upside down. He wasn't seeing black or white. He saw only endless darkness. It's as if the basic binary structure of light and dark that anchors our reality, it just dissolved.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the physical world joins that sensory flip.
Ram experienced the entire world flipping like a photo negative. What was the ground suddenly seemed like the sky.
Creating this absolutely dizzying sensation of standing on the ceiling of the universe.
Exactly. And looking down at the ground that was now hovering above him. It's like stepping into an M.C. Escher drawing where gravity is, well, optional.
He writes that his body escaped the gravitation of Earth, suspended in the void. He wasn't just weightless, he was decoupled from the Earth's pull.
And in this suspended state, this invisible force began communicating. But not with language, it was with pulsation.
Pulsation.
Yes. Ram describes perceiving everything. Living matter, non-living space, the void itself. It all seemed to be pulsating and alive beyond explanation.
So it's a non-verbal vibrational communication. It suggests the underlying nature of reality is fundamentally cyclical and energetic, not solid and static.
That state of suspension and heightened communication leads directly to the moment of total collapse. Ram felt clinically dead.
No breathing, no pulse, no heartbeat.
Nothing that the external world would define as life. And at that point, he says, the source took over his self-consciousness. He wasn't thinking, he wasn't doing, he merely existed, transcending everything he knew.
A complete decoupling from the physical vessel. And after what felt like an eternity of this non-existence, the source initiated contact.
It was a wordless exchange at first, wasn't it?
It was. This entity in the void seemed to scan or access Ram's entire being, his innermost thoughts, memories, fears, like debugging an ancient hard drive.
Then came the terrifying declaration. The source spoke, and its voice was described as thunderous in the absolute silence. I know you by your name.
And Ram reacted with what he could only describe as fear like death.
Why is that so terrifying? I mean,
Yeah.
on the surface, it might sound reassuring.
Because Ram had just spent weeks realizing his name and identity were external constructs. For the ultimate universal source to claim knowledge of his constructed self implies that everything he tried to shed was still known, still recorded. It makes the dissolution feel pointless.
It strips away his last refuge of anonymity.
Exactly, and that fear initiated the terrifying central vision. He describes being dragged into the depths of the earth, just falling endlessly without gravity or friction to slow him down.
And there he saw empty figures. Figures with no discernible souls, just floating.
And these creatures were fueled entirely by destructive emotions. Anger, hate, confusion, fear. They were just generating chaos.
The visual detail he provides is fascinating. These creatures were untouched by the intense, deep red fire they were creating.
They seemed to be the flames swirling upwards, causing destruction but remaining whole. Ram felt like a speck of darkness just drifting among their violent energy.
And the crucial moment of synthesis occurs in this hellish space. Ram realized that these empty figures, they were reflections of myself.
The parts fueled by the same destructive, chaotic emotions he had been wrestling with.
And instead of fighting them or fleeing, he expanded. He spread out, becoming the darkness that snuffed out the deep red flames, and everything just faded into an empty void.
And the voice confirmed it. It's who you are.
Wow.
It suggests the dark, destructive capacity is not some external enemy, but an intrinsic, fundamental part of the self that has to be embraced or incorporated, not rejected.
Rom later tried to rationalize the interaction. He called it line-of-sight communication, where the abyss literally gazed back at him.
Yet despite this profound access, the feeling of scale returned. He felt profoundly abandoned, talking only to the vast void, perceiving himself as the smallest grain of dust in comparison.
To bring this scale down to an intensely personal emotional level, we have what is maybe the most specific anecdote in all the notes, the bear-cub paradox.
This was a vision where he instantly switched between the consciousness of a young boy and a small bear cub, feeling completely connected.
The scene is so grounded compared to the void. Ram woke as a young boy in a large house near some mountains. He finds a small, wounded, brown bear cub, the size of a 4-year-old child, hiding in a dark corner.
And because his family was in the wood trading business, Ram inferred the cub had been unintentionally transported from the forest.
The boy cared for this cub in secret for weeks. But what makes this story so powerful is the shared pain. The cub, whenever the boy was present, managed to hide its wound and its sadness.
It put on a cheerful front to protect the boy.
Yes, the climax arrived when the cub hugged the boy tightly one evening, then whispered, "I want to go home," and just vanished.
The simple desire for home from a creature hiding its deepest pain is just devastating. And this moment of pure sacrificial emotional connection, the boy and the cub instantly understanding each other, led directly into the cosmic message loop that followed.
No one is father, no one is son. I am the father, I am the son. You are the father, you are the son.
That cyclical, interconnected nature of identity, suggested by the bear cub story, where every role collapses into every other role, was then cemented by the ultimate backward journey, the cosmic regression.
Ram's entire life played backward like a movie. He viewed it as a shadow of myself.
And it wasn't just a review of his life, it kept going. He moved through perceived past lives, then backward, past all forms of life, into the very genesis of the cosmos, the initial burst of matter, energy, and fundamental force.
So what does this all mean when we zoom out?
Ram realized that everything, from the smallest grain of dust to the deepest shadow, it all manifested from this single source. And the way he perceived this regression was terrifyingly paradoxical.
With his eyes wide open, he could perceive the Earth, the stars, the galaxies, the entire cosmos. Yet his conscious self remained a speck of dust suspended in the vast void.
And the terrifying part wasn't the size difference, it was the reversed flow of time, with these holographic projections of his existence moving backward, proving that linearity was just a purely temporal, fleeting construction.
This has been a monumental synthesis of personal philosophy, physiological breakdown, and, well, cosmic revelation. Ram's journey, starting with that psychological chase for the shadow on the horizon, suggests that the order we crave and the chaos we dread are merely two inseparable faces of the same universal reality.
And his ultimate conclusion, found not in life but in a state that felt clinically dead, is that true order may lie not in establishing boundaries but in the complete, terrifying dissolution of the defined self. That final act of surrendering to the void is what unlocked the deepest insight.
So if the boundaries of time, space, and individual identity are, as Ram's experience suggests, simply constructs of our waking, thinking mind, the mind that his fasting and insomnia were tearing apart, then we have to ask you, what is the nature of the you that is left when, like Ram, you are dead and yet still present in the absolute silence of the void, known by the thunderous source, yet still just a grain of dust? That is the question we leave you to explore long after this deep dive.